My wife insisted we move closer to her family, then tried to make me pay for her parents' mortgage. When I refused, they tried to take over my house. I divorced her and kept the house. I'm 33, just a regular guy. Worked hard my whole life, made some good choices, and somehow managed to buy my own place. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. Bought and paid for with years of work and sacrifices. I thought I had it pretty good. Steady job, a quiet neighborhood, and a wife I'd married 3 years ago. For a while, it felt like everything was falling into place. But love, as I'd soon learn, isn't always enough to keep a person grounded. And some people are just built to take. It all started when my wife, Elle, wanted to move closer to her parents. They were about an hour away, which was far enough that we couldn't do regular Sunday dinners, but close enough that we saw them on holidays and birthdays. I thought it was a decent balance, but Elle didn't. She kept saying she missed them, that she wanted us to build a life together, as a family. Looking back, maybe I should have seen the signs. The way her family relied on her for everything. They'd call her about car troubles, money issues, arguments, you name it. I'd brushed it off as just her being a good daughter. Now, I think I was blind. After months of pressure, she wore me down. She painted this picture of family barbecues, our future kids running around with their grandparents, the whole American dream. So I agreed. We sold my place and used most of the money for a down payment on a house closer to her parents. I thought I was doing something good for my family. Turns out, I was just setting myself up to get played. First 6 months in the new place were fine. She was happier, seeing her parents all the time. Then she started dropping hints. At first, it was subtle. Comments about how her dad's business had hit a rough patch. Her parents were struggling, she said, barely hanging on to their house. I sympathized, but didn't think much of it. One night, she dropped the real bombshell. We were sitting at the dinner table, and she says, "You know, my parents are about to lose their house." She looked at me with these big, sad eyes, like I was supposed to know where this was going. "That's awful," I said, genuinely feeling bad for them. "What are they planning to do?" She sighed, glancing away, and then dropped it on me. "Well, I was thinking, maybe we could help them, just temporarily, until they get back on their feet." "Help how?" I asked, genuinely confused. Her voice softened like she was about to tell me the sweetest little secret. "By paying their mortgage, just for a few months." I sat there, staring at her, trying to process what I'd just heard. "You want us to pay their mortgage?" "Just until they can catch up," she said quickly. "It wouldn't be forever. Just a little help. We're family." I shook my head. "Elle, we're barely covering our own mortgage right now. We can't afford to pay for 2 houses. She folded her arms, her face hardening. "Wow, really? So you just let my parents lose their house?" The guilt trip was thick, but I wasn't biting. "Look, I get that they're struggling, but we have our own bills, our own life. We can't just take on someone else's debt like that." She gave me the cold shoulder for a week after that. It was like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. She'd make passive-aggressive comments, stuff like, "Real men take care of their families," or, "Some people wouldn't abandon their in-laws when they're struggling." It was relentless. But I held my ground. Then the manipulation escalated. Mom started showing up at our house unannounced, crying about how the stress was making her sick. She'd talk about sleepless nights, constant worry, how they were at their wits' end. Her dad would come over too, dropping hints about how the bank was squeezing them dry. They were laying it on thick, hoping I'd cave. One Saturday morning, I walked into the kitchen to find Elle in tears, her face buried in her hands. I asked her what was wrong, and she sobbed. "Mom had a panic attack last night. She thought she was going to die." I stared at her, feeling that old guilt creep back in, but something didn't feel right. I didn't like the idea of being manipulated like this, of having to question if what she was saying was even true, but I kept my mouth shut, hoping the whole thing would just blow over. It didn't. In fact, things only got worse. Elle came to me one night with a new plan. Apparently, her dad's bank would let them keep the house if they could cover 3 months of payments. "It's just 3 months," she pleaded. "You can do this just for a little while. They'll be fine after that." "No," I said, feeling the word echo in the silence. "We can't. We have our own life to take care of." She didn't speak to me for days. And honestly, I didn't mind. It felt like a break from all the pressure, chance to breathe, but I underestimated her determination. One day, I came home to find her parents' belongings stacked in our garage. Boxes, furniture, even her dad's recliner. I walked into the house, my jaw clenched. "What's going on?" I demanded. Elle looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable. "You're moving in," she said, her voice casual, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Moving in?" I repeated, barely able to contain my anger. "You didn't even ask me." She shrugged. "It's just until they can figure things out." "Are you serious? You're just going to let them move into our house without even discussing it?" She folded her arms, her eyes challenging. "You left us no choice. They have nowhere else to go." Her parents settled in like they owned the place. Dad treated my den like his personal office. Her mom rearranged my kitchen without a word. I felt like a stranger in my own home, like I was intruding on their family space. The worst part was how they treated me. Her dad would leave dirty dishes in the sink without a second thought. Mom would comment on everything I did, from the way I cooked to how I folded laundry. They acted like they were entitled to everything, like I was just some guy lucky enough to be part of their family. Final straw came one evening when Elle sat me down and said, "I talked to a lawyer today." "What?" I asked, my heart sinking. "About putting the house in both our names," she said. "It just makes sense. If something happens to you, I need to be protected." This was my house, bought with my money. I wasn't about to sign it over just because her family had screwed up. "No," I said, my voice firm. "The house is in my name, and that's how it's staying." She looked at me, her expression a mix of shock and rage. "So what? You don't trust me?" "It's not about trust," I said, barely keeping my voice steady. "It's about the fact that this house is mine. I'm not signing it over just because your family has issues." That night, I realized I was done. I couldn't live like this, constantly being manipulated, pressured, treated like I was the one in the wrong. So, I packed a bag and left. I booked a cheap motel, just to clear my head, to figure out my next move. When I came back the next day, the house was in chaos. Elle had gathered her entire family for what looked like some kind of intervention. They all sat in my living room, staring at me like I was the villain of the story. Her mom spoke first, her voice trembling. "How could you abandon us like this, Em? We're family." Her dad chimed in, shaking his head. "A real man wouldn't just walk away when things get tough." I stood there, my heart pounding, feeling the weight of their accusations. But I'd had enough. "This isn't my family," I said, my voice cold and final. "You've done nothing but take and take since we moved here. I'm done." Elle looked at me, her face twisted with fury. "So, that's it? You're just leaving?" "Yes," I said, the word like a weight lifting off my shoulders. "I'm keeping the house. You and your family can figure things out on your own." They threw every threat they could think of. Legal action, slander, guilt trips, you name it. But I was done caring. I walked out of that house and never looked back. The divorce was brutal. Elle tried to take everything, demanding spousal support, claiming she was entitled to a share of the house. But I fought back, and in the end, I won. She and her family moved out, and the house was mine. Now, months later, the house feels different. Quiet, empty, but peaceful. I finally reclaimed my space, a place that had once felt like a battleground. I won the house and the divorce, and though it's bittersweet, I'm grateful to be free from their manipulations. I think back on the life I thought I was building and realize that some people only know how to take. Now I look forward, not back. If this whole mess taught me anything, it's that sometimes you've got to stand your ground, even if it means standing alone. Hey, if you enjoyed this little saga of family chaos, hit that subscribe button. You never know what drama life's gonna throw at you next.